Welcome to Spring LIB.
All right, so this question, we kind of want to think about what the direct consequences of global warming are in order to think through what the consequences of those consequences are, because that will be our indirect effect, if that makes sense. It will after we go through this, I promise. So the first thing we can come up with based solely on the name is that global warming leads to a rise in temperatures globally. That's pretty much the most direct consequence, meaning we can probably pretty safely say that option B is not the answer to this particular question because we're looking for the indirect one in that list. Now, let's start to think about global warming is literally, it's not just like a consequence, it is a rise in global temperatures. And what this can mean is that in the ocean, for instance, or in a large body of water, or like aquatic biomes, etc., the temperature of the ocean, or I'm using the ocean as an example here, can increase. And as temperature increases in bodies of water, the oxygen levels, the dissolved oxygen levels, which, fish and plants use in bodies of water to survive, will actually lower. And this can also lead to, as temperatures increase in bodies of water, evaporation will increase. This can lead to more precipitation. And in areas that are, say, polluted, as this rainwater comes down, this precipitation can get polluted, and then that will run back into the body of water that it came from and pollute it more, thus changing the quality of the water itself. Although a decrease in oxygen levels and the effect that that has on other nutrients and or dissolved things in the water and on life in the water itself will also lead to a change in water quality. So that's sort of another direct consequence to global warming. Now then, the other thing to think about is what's happening in terrestrial biomes. Well, in this example, we started out with 4 plants just kind of chilling, having a good time. But global warming, the temperatures increased here, and only one plant, this dude, was able to survive because it had a trait that let it have a higher temperature tolerance. But not all plants will have this. And so this guy has a lot of little plant offspring, and these offspring will carry that high temperature tolerance trait, which they will pass on to their offspring, but which will mean, in future generations, temperature tolerance in plants has increased just because of like an adaptation to the increase in temperatures globally. But these are all sort of things caused directly by an increase in temperature. Now, let's try to think about what the indirect effect of all of those is, which is actually, if we start to break it down, a loss in biodiversity, which is the diversity of life on the planet. And let's think about why that is. So we can go back to our ocean example, for instance. As oxygen levels deplete and as, maybe polluted rainwater enters into bodies of water, you will have organisms that live there start to die off. Now, some of them can survive in these environments, but like the plants, but not all of them will be able to. Also, some of this, dying off can be caused by just the increase in temperature itself, but the largest effect is going to be based on the effect that this has on the environment and the abiotic changes it leads to. Same thing, we can actually see this happening in the plant example, where we already see a loss in 3/4 of this plant's population. Um, and even though this one plant is having offspring, you still see a massive reduction in biodiversity in the area, because you can take these 4 plants and multiply it times 1,000 acres, and this is happening all over that land. Um, so that means that our indirect consequence, which is still a very important and large one, but just not directly caused by a increase in global temperature in and of itself, is A, the loss of biodiversity.